Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Parent and Family webinar. Today's topic is Study Abroad at Brown. We're so glad that you can join us today. My name is Mikkel St. Germain. I am the Director of Parent and Family Engagement here at Brown, and we are coming to you live from the Brown campus here in very cold and snowy Providence, Rhode Island. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our new parents and families who are joining us, as well as the ones who have been with us along for this winter webinar series. We do have another webinar coming up on Monday. I want to remind you about that is for career exploration. So please go ahead and register for that one if you do want to attend. Of course, we always record these and have them posted to the page where you register a day or two after they end. It takes us a little bit to edit them, and then we try and get to them to you as soon as possible. If you have any questions following this webinar, please reach out to me at family@brown.edu. And if I can't answer your question, I'll get it to the person who can. We already have close to 100 people joining us today. We'll be excited to get into your questions in just a little bit. We took the questions you submitted from the registration to create this program. However, if you have questions as we go along, please feel free to submit them using the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. And then we also have a live captioner with us today. So if you do need captions, please click the CC button at the bottom of your screen and you'll have access to those. I encourage you to fill out the survey that we're going to share with you at the end of this webinar. It's a quick 3-question survey, and it will help us to continue to improve our programming for you. Now, let's get started. We have a lot to cover. I am very happy to introduce my colleagues from the college. We have with us today Malik Blue, who is the Senior Associate Dean of the College for Study Abroad. We have Adeline Wong, who is the Director of Global Partnership and Programs. And then we are also very excited to have a student with us today as well. We have Emily Olson, who is class of 2026 and is studying applied math and computer science. So I'm going to hand everything over to Malik to get started, and we will answer your questions towards the end of the program. Thank you. Malik?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mikkel. As Mikkel shared, my name is Malik Blue. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Study Abroad here at Brown. What that means is that I have the really special job of not only supporting students here on the Brown campus and helping them towards degree completion, but I get the really exciting work of encouraging them to think about how it is that they can extend their Brown experience to all different parts of the world. So it's really unique work, very exciting work, and we get to help students build perspective, learn languages, and learn about other cultures. It's work that I'm very passionate about and enjoy a lot. I'm joined by my colleague Adeline Wong. If you want to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Adeline Wong. I'm the Director for Global Partnerships and Programs. And as you'll see later, I oversee the programming that Brown administers for our students abroad, and it takes several different forms. I'm from the Office of Global Engagement, but Malik and I work really closely.
Awesome. Emily, do you want to take a moment to briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name is Emily. I'm a senior this year studying applied math and computer science, and I studied abroad the fall of my junior year. So I'll jump in a little bit later during the program to talk about my experience.
Great. Thank you, Emily. So without further ado, let's give you an understanding of what you can expect from today's session. So just looking at the what to expect slide here. Overall, we're going to be discussing different ways for Brown students to study abroad, whether it's short term, during break sessions at the university, or fall and spring participation abroad. And also we'll talk a little bit about some domestic opportunities for students to study away from campus, but within the US. We'll spend a little time talking about the benefits of study abroad. Of course, as family members, we want to sort of help you understand how it is that you can work with us to support your students in their pursuit of study abroad. And we also want to take some time to not just talk about the generalities of study abroad and what it could look like in its various forms, but also a particular program spotlight. We're going to be talking about the Kasa Granada program in Spain, which is also the program that Emily participated in, to give you a concrete example of what the day-to-day could look like for study abroad. And then we're also going to give you a glimpse of a part of our portfolio, the Global Summer Programs, which is an opportunity that is short-term oriented and faculty-led, again, to offer a different flavor of study abroad experiences. We'll round out with some next steps, again, for your students and for you as parents and supporters of study abroad. And then lastly, we'll keep some time for questions and answers, knowing that even though we covered a lot of information, there are lots of things that are going to be swirling around in your minds. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and move on to just summarizing an overview of what study abroad looks like at Brown in terms of participation. We send about 20% of students. Sorry, it's the next slide, please. We send about 20% of students on semester study abroad experiences, which is double the national average. And I share that not to brag, it's something I'm very proud of, but also to say that study abroad and international experiences and study away are opportunities that are highly encouraged at Brown and very well supported, both from an academic and financial standpoint, which we'll talk about a little later. In terms of our semester portfolio, we have over 100 programs across 45 different countries. And as a university, we administer 7 programs through Adeline's team, and she'll talk a little bit about those programs as well. And I highlight the number of programs in particular to highlight the fact that there really is a program for every student, regardless of their concentration, regardless of their language ability. It's just a matter of students spending time reflecting on what they're hoping to get out of a study abroad experience, spending time with advisors, searching and exploring for the right program, and ultimately taking the next step to apply and prepare. So there are programs for everyone. Next slide, please. I did briefly mention that there are other off-campus opportunities that are domestic-oriented or not the sort of traditional study abroad. One of those such experiences is the Brown Semester Internship Programs. We have a Brown in Washington program that's based in Washington, D.C. It's a cohort-based program, and students are involved in an internship and earn credit for that internship and take 2 additional courses to enroll full-time through Brown for that semester. So it's a study away experience that really is oriented around an internship and having a reflective component to that. In addition to the Brown in Washington program, students are able to choose from a number of locations around the world to do an internship in a city abroad. And you'll see right here on the screen what some of those recent locations have looked like. So we've had students in Berlin this past fall in the last few semesters. And in the spring, we have students who are in Sydney, Australia, and Dublin, Ireland. And the Brown in Washington program is available both fall and spring. And we also do have a Tougaloo exchange program, and that is a program that's available for students who want to study at Tougaloo College, which is in Jackson, Mississippi. And it's an HBCU, a historically Black college. And it's an opportunity for students to engage in coursework that we may not offer here on campus. Next slide, please. We also have opportunities that are short-term oriented. So we call them short-term faculty-led programs. They sort of fall in 2 buckets. Those that happen in the winter session, which we refer to as GELT, so Global Experiential Learning and Teaching Programs. Those take place in the winter session as well as spring break, embedded as a part of a spring course. And then we have global summer programs, which are offered during the summer and also faculty-led, so led by Brown faculty members who take a cohort of students to teach a particular course. And these courses are multidisciplinary. They're open to all students of every year. And Adeline will talk a little bit about the offerings that are available this upcoming summer. What you see here on the screen are the 4 programs that ran this past summer. But we'll move ahead to the next slide, please. All right, so it is the start of the spring 2026 semester. And believe it or not, we have students who are abroad and all over the world, all times of the year. So as we're starting the spring 2026 semester, I did want to chat a little bit about where in the world our students are. So on this next slide, you'll see a heat map that shows where our students currently are, and they're all over. So we have very close to 350 students who are abroad in over 40 countries. You'll see the countries in pretty small font listed there on the left. But that's just to show, again, all of the wonderful places that our students are studying at this very moment, which is really special. So this is largely just to satisfy curiosity, just to give a little context of where our students are. Next slide, please. So you may be wondering what the sort of entry point and sort of eligibility criteria are for study abroad. As I mentioned earlier, study abroad is something that we encourage here at Brown, which means that we try to work really hard to reduce the barriers for entry, which means that our eligibility criteria are pretty simple. We ask for students to be in good academic standing as well as good conduct standing. We ask them to have a declared concentration and a valid passport. And the spirit of these requirements, again, is not meant to be a barrier, but is to ensure that our students have a solid foundation before they extend their experience to another location. So again, making sure that things are going well here on campus at Brown first, there's a solid foundation, and then we help launch students into seeking what other opportunities might look like. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we like to highlight for our semester study abroad programs is that they're academic oriented, of course, and they're experiences that help advance students towards degree. So these are credit-bearing experiences that can also satisfy concentration requirements. So lots of times when people think about study abroad, they believe that it's sort of taking a break and moving away from campus. And while physically you're doing that, study abroad is also something that is academically integrated into Brown. So students are making progress towards degree. That's something that's very important to us. The way in which this experience looks for students varies based on the particular program that they're engaging in. So students may be studying alongside local students at another local university abroad. So instead of being at Brown University, they could be at the University of College London, sitting alongside locals and, of course, other international students as well. There are some programs that are sort of cohort-based where it's sort of all study abroad students. And then, as we'll talk about a little bit later, we have some programs that we administer as a university that tend to have a pretty strong representation of Brown students, which allows students to have a sort of extension and continuation of community that they have here on campus abroad as well. The same way that we have lots of different co-curricular and curricular opportunities available at Brown, the very same is offered in lots of different ways on many of our study abroad programs. So when you think about opportunities such as research, internships, volunteering, all of those things are available to students on our study abroad programs, which is a great way for them to have cultural and experiences outside of the classroom that help sort of bolster their overall learning in a sort of well-rounded way that we also encourage here on campus. As another supportive degree completion, in situations in which students have specific course requirements that they need to take through Brown or need to earn an additional credit in addition to what they're taking on site abroad, students are also able to take a remote course through Brown to help satisfy any requirements that prove to be a little challenging to satisfy while they are abroad. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but I did also want to say that as we advise for study abroad, we work very closely with concentration advisors. We encourage students to work very closely with their concentration advisors so they have an understanding of how it is that the coursework that they take abroad translates back to Brown and contributes to their overall requirements at the university. Next slide, please. So you may be asking the question of when is the right time to go abroad? I have some bullet points here, but I'll keep it very short and sweet, is that there is no right time for every single student. It's a matter of having students understand what their priorities are as it relates to their academics, what their needs are, both personally and academic related, and finding when the right time is for them as an individual. Surely there are some trends of when we see most students study abroad, but that's not at all something that is sort of dictated by us, but it's really about when it sort of happens to work for many students. So many students, their fifth and sixth semesters, so that junior year tends to be a pretty good spot for them where they've already had a foundation here at Brown and are then subsequently ready to explore another opportunity elsewhere. But the question of when to go abroad, the question really is reflected back to the student to say when works for you based on the needs that you're sort of juggling overall. Next slide, please. So you may have questions related to funding for study abroad, and what I'm sharing now is specifically related to our semester study abroad opportunities. The funding structure for short-term experiences, the GELTs, and the global summer programs is a bit different, so just know that what I'm sharing is related to semester opportunities. So here at Brown for semester study abroad, we work under the homeschool tuition model, which means that students continue to pay Brown tuition while they are on study abroad. And that also means that they also receive the same financial aid package that they receive while they're at Brown. So from a tuition perspective, it's exactly the same as you would expect a normal semester. And as it relates to out-of-pocket costs, that's where we spend a little time with students budgeting and planning, because of course the cost of housing in Barcelona, for example, or in Dublin, or in Australia, Sydney, Australia, is not going to be the same as Providence. So we work with students very closely to look at their budgets to see how it is that these out-of-pocket costs vary. And we also work with students through that budgeting process to see if they may want to consider applying for external scholarships. This overall financial model allows us to keep study abroad financially accessible, where students are able to make decisions based on their academic needs and not necessarily allowing finances or needing finances to be the primary driver. So there's lots of nuances as it relates to funding, but the important thing to take away is that financial aid does apply the same as it does here at Brown when students are in semester experiences. The category to take a little bit of time and consideration for are the out-of-pocket costs, which advisors work very closely with students to think through. I will ask us to move to the next slide, please. And so far, we've talked a little bit about the sort of what is study abroad, but for me, it's not just the what and what it looks like for our students, but rather how is it that our students are developing and why invest the time and energy in this type of experience. So on the screen here, you'll have what are described as the benefits of study abroad, which to me are the things that really paint the picture of why a student might take advantage of this opportunity, why it's meaningful, and what it might mean for their lives moving forward. For me, one of the things that I often think about is that every year that goes on, the world seems to be an even more complicated place, but through that complication, it's really interconnected. So for us, it's really important that our students understand that interconnectivity, understand that what happens in the US also impacts other parts of the world and vice versa. And study abroad is really a great place for our students to have that real life experience of understanding and interacting with another culture, to take lessons back home to the work that they do in community, and to overall impact their overall education, which again is an important aspect of this. So in addition to the sort of social and personal aspects of the benefits of study abroad, of course, our students are building wonderful networks socially through meeting new people all over the world, learning different languages and cultures. They're also building really strong professional networks as well, which can prove to be pretty productive, especially if students are wanting to consider a career outside of the United States. And what we also know is that I mentioned earlier that about 10% of students who graduate college in the United States study abroad. So when we think about that number, and again, it's 20% at Brown, we think about that number and we think about folks who are applying for jobs after college, we know that students who study abroad and have meaningful experiences and build really critical skills stand out. So in our work with students, we spend a lot of time helping them reflect on what their study abroad experience was, some of the skills that they developed, and how it is that that can apply in a work context and or in a future graduate school opportunity. So it's really not just the fact that we facilitate the experience for students, but we also really encourage reflection post the experience so that they can articulate the value of it. And again, it's all these benefits that we want to have our students share with the future employers. Next slide, please. All right, so as a parent and supporter of a college student, you may be asking, what is my role in this process? And the reality is that there's lots of people who are involved in the study abroad preparation process. There are professional staff, like folks on my team. We have student workers in our office, like Emily, who share their perspective and guidance to students as someone who's recently engaged in the opportunity. There are folks on Adeline's team who are on-site supporting students adjust to a new environment and continuing to process and integrate into the local environment. There are folks all around campus helping students think through academic requirements, financial aid considerations. And that's to say that there are lots of people who are here to support to make this opportunity happen. The thing that's really important is that our students have to be engaged in the process. And I think that that's actually a really good segue for us to talk about how it is that we see that parent interactions can be really productive and supportive. And I often describe it as we don't want you to be in the driver's seat as the parent. And we sort of often talk about that in the college context when they're here on campus, is that they're the ones who are going to be sitting in the classroom studying for exams and taking tests and ultimately need to turn in papers. And for study abroad, they need to be even more independent. And we think this is a great space for them to flex that independence. Of course, you want to be informed as someone who's supporting your student through this process. And we encourage our students to be well informed about the decisions that they're making, include key decision makers, namely you, in that process. And the analogy that I often talk about is that, as it relates to driving, we want the student to be in the driver's seat. And this is a situation in which we encourage sort of backseat driving in a productive way. So you can encourage guidance and give directions. You can be the live GPS to say, turn left here and such. But it really should be the student that is taking the lead. And it becomes really important when they're thousands of miles away, that they have that ability to be independent and the confidence to navigate all of these different steps in the process that, again, they're supported through, but ultimately they're the ones who have to take action. So I just wanted to note that we want you to be supporters and encouraging students, and know that in addition to the support that's available to students, know that you also have us as a support system. But we always encourage students to be the sort of main communicator of expectations and what the experience looks like. It allows them to have a more sort of robust experience that has them take ownership. Next slide, please. You also may be wondering about health, safety, and security. So we spend a lot of time with our students talking about this very concept. So as students are considering study abroad and are applying, we talk to them about what it looks like to be a well-informed traveler, which means that you are aware of your surroundings and also aware to some degree of some of the common challenges or issues that may be at play in the location that you're going to. So we spend a lot of time sort of in the preparation process, making sure that students understand what safety looks like in different places around the world, because that does vary based on culture. It's really about situational awareness. So some of the bad habits that we sort of give a pass to, but probably shouldn't here, even in the US, like wearing both of your headbuds and sort of zoning out. We want to really make sure that our students are not doing that, especially in an environment that they're not used to. So those are the types of things that we talk with our students about ahead of time. In addition to that, we also require them to register in Travel Safe, which is a Brown homegrown system that asks students to share their travel itineraries, so that in the worst case scenario, there is some sort of emergency, we know exactly where our students are and know who to reach out to in terms of support. We also ask them to register for the STEP program through the Department of State, which allows them to receive timely updates related to any sort of emergencies that are impacting the area that they are. And then we explicitly talk through scenarios about what to do in an emergency, who's available to you if something should happen while you're abroad. And the sort of general mental model we always encourage students to think through is that they always want to tap into the local resource first and then work their way out. So the thing that I say to students frequently through pre-departure orientations, if you're going through a difficult time while you're abroad, and you may get upset at me for saying this, don't call your parents first. call them second. The first call we really want to be to the person that is closest to you that can help you address it. And while you love your parents and they're really supportive to you, there's likely not something they can do in the very moment, but we do have folks who are abroad, closer to students that can react first. And it's likely that you might appreciate the being the second call to say, hey, something just happened. I'm a little, upset, but I'm here with the site director and I'm well supported. That type of call is the call that we like to have sent to parents versus the panicked, I don't know what to do. So just know that that's the guidance that we share with students. In addition to the pre-departure things, we also, while students abroad, of course, have on-site orientations. And then from afar, we do have colleagues here at Brown who are monitoring health, safety, and security conditions. We actually have a colleague who's dedicated to this. That's her full-time job. So we're well informed of what's going on and are poised to react and make sure that students are connected to resources that they need should emergencies arise. And then we also have our students enrolled in International SOS, which is a supplemental policy to cover accident and illness. So this is in addition to your typical health insurance, but it's a way for our students to get access to emergency health care and also mental health needs while they're abroad. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to transition it to my colleague Adeline to talk a little bit more specifically about programs so you have an understanding of what specific programs might look like.
Thank you, Malik. So we talked a lot about all the different locations that students can choose and all the programs that we can choose. But here at Brown and in my office, we do believe that there's something we can offer that really extends the Brown experience, the Brown curriculum, the craving for curiosity, the need for deep immersion and academic rigor in the programming that we do. And this is why we actually run some of our own programs. We would love to be everywhere, but for semester-long study abroad programs, that means in the fall semester and the spring semester, we actually run 7 locations. You'll see that there is Brown in Bologna, Brown in Paris, and then I have 5 others that start with CASA, CASA Barcelona, Dublin, Granada, Havana, and Melbourne. CASA stands for the Consortium for Advanced Studies Abroad, and this is a consortium that was actually set up here at Brown, but in consortium with some of our colleagues from other universities, and namely these universities are Harvard, UPenn, Columbia, Cornell, Swarthmore, Amherst. You can find that list, and it sort of reads among very familiar names. And basically, when we came together, we said, how could we provide programming that is culturally immersive, locally, respectful, and would give students a deep academic as well as meaningful experience that allows them to create deep connections and have that transformative experience that we always look for in study abroad with support from our local teams. So these are actually the CASA programs. The Brown in Bologna and Brown in Paris are very similar. The only difference is with the CASA programs, we tend to have a lot of students from some of the other CASA schools as well. I will talk a little bit more about Kasa Granada after this, but I also wanted to point out, as Malik has already said, that I also do run the global summer programs, and I'll say more about that in a second. For the next slide, I'm going to really sort of focus on one of these programs, which is Kasa Granada. I see myself as the opening act for you to talk to Emily Olson, who is our student who was in Kasa Granada a couple semesters ago, and you can ask her all about it. But just to sort of tell you a little bit about Emily's experience and hopefully your students' experience and what it could look like. And again, not all programs feel like this or will be like this because every program's a little different, but there are going to be some key similarities in the Brown centers that I oversee from my office. So Casa Granada, it's a program that is run in Granada, Spain. It is one of the very few programs we run where you don't actually have to have the local language already figured out. All my other programs like Barcelona and Havana, you actually do have to go with advanced Spanish. And that's because in Casa Granada, we actually run a program with 5 different tracks, and that will help students either learn the language, or if you're already really good at the language, we will even go to the highest level of teaching you how to do translation. And so that's sort of the setup of that program. It is obviously based in the lovely city of Granada. For those of you who know a little bit about it, it is in the Andalusian region, and it is a region that is really ripe with a lot of cultural meanings, food, experiences. And as Emily might also tell you, it is also, as I was told, you can go from the mountains in the morning to the beaches in the evening. And that sounds extremely lovely to us here in Providence today. Um, I actually have this. This is my live photo. I just got it from my team. We have a group of students there right now. This is them going through their orientation with our group. And this particular program, what's interesting for Granada is that we actually have uh, uh, 30 a big portion of brown students in our group and cohort. This is a very popular brown program. To the next slide, please. So I'm going to spend a few seconds on academics and what Granada looks like for an academic experience. So I mentioned already that there are 5 tracks, and they all sort of, if you think about it from 1 to 5, from 0 Spanish to the highest level of Spanish possible, which is almost bilingual fluency. If you're sort of in the early tracks of Spanish, like you're just learning, or you're advanced beginner, advanced intermediate, somewhere there, we have a program with the Center for Modern Languages based out of the University of Granada, which will give you modular train. First of all, they'll do an online placement and then an in-person placement, and then they'll sort of train you up. And so by the time you leave after a semester at the Center for Modern Languages, we typically see students make progress that is equivalent to 2 to 3 semesters of language learning in like on campus here. And that's because you are immersed and you're there all the time, and that's all you're speaking, we hope. And Emily will, of course, tell you that she only spoke Spanish the entire time she was there. Um, uh, so that's the picture on the left. That's the Center for Modern Languages, and it's actually the current cohort, which is currently being shown around the space. It is, as you can tell, a gorgeous sort of old style palazzo in a courtyard, and that's really typical of the infrastructure of the area. The second photo in the middle is the University of Granada. Now, for students who are in a slightly higher level of Spanish, they are actually able to take classes in Spanish with the University of Granada, which is one of the top schools in Spain. It is actually very well known for its robotics, STEM, I believe computer science as well. I'm not sure, Emily, if you took some classes there while you're there. And this is really for students who already have a grasp of the language, right? Because can you imagine? I always say astrophysics is hard in English. In Spanish, it's just out of my league, right? So we want to make sure that you're able to enter these universities, take classes alongside Spanish students, and be able to thrive and keep it going. And of course, we have lots of support in terms of our students, and we will have tutoring if they need it to help them get through it. The photo on the right is actually a student, a brown student who did what we call a research assistantship, which is one of our most unique and distinctive offerings at Kasa Granada, where STEM students or not STEM students, students in general, who are interested in doing an assistantship. And these are lab research opportunities. And I say STEM because I know for many of our STEM students, these are the most interesting opportunities to get. And they're very hard to get in any other university. And in fact, if you were an undergraduate at the University of Granada, this is actually not open to you. These are usually graduate student positions. So we do have a good number of students every semester applying to do these STEM assistantships. They do lab work with faculty of the University of Granada. And this particular student actually had a great story. She was supposed to only go to the lab, I believe, 7 to 8 hours a week, so it's almost like co-curricular for her. It wasn't a credit-bearing option for her at Brown. And her job was to extract snail DNA, which sounds great, but she loved it so much she went every single day for several hours a day, and she ended up co-publishing and co-presenting with a faculty member on the work that she did in snail DNA. So there are all these different options, and I have a team on the ground that really looks and tries to meet your students where they're at. But aside from the academics, and we can go to the next slide, I also want to talk a little bit about the activities that we do there. We do all sorts of different activities every semester, and we try to make it interesting for students. And also, some students have particular interests, and we try to meet that. I see Emily smiling because I think you see yourself in this picture, Emily, which is how I met Emily when they had a paella cooking class in Malaga, where they learned to cook paella, and it was incredible. It was a singing, dancing, and the whole afternoon of an experience. We also have lots of tours and walking tours of the different places and excursions that they go through during the semester. And the last picture on the right is one when they did a turtle rescue event a few years ago. And so it sort of differs from semester to semester, but we really do try to make sure that the students are not just in class, but really having that full experience. Now, part of the full experience is also where you live. And as you look through all the different study abroad programs, this is also a good question to ask. You could, in this particular Kasa Granada program, we offer two kinds of living arrangements. One is a residence hall, where you would have your own dorm, and you would share a kitchen, but you would have your own space. Or you could stay in a homestay with a Spanish family. And Emily, you might want to say a little bit about that, because I visited her family and it was incredible. And I still talk about it. And there are many different ways to think about which one fits your student better. And we're of course happy to answer any questions about that. And I think I'll pause there and give Emily the floor from here.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. Just to reiterate, my name's Emily. I'm a senior studying applied math and computer science, and I participated in the Casa Granada program during my junior fall. And I have so many amazing things I could say about this program, but I'll try to keep it short. I think some of the initial reasons that I was drawn to the Casa Granada program, like Adeline was mentioning, I think that there's a lot of flexibility. And so, as someone who had taken Spanish classes in high school but hadn't really practiced those skills since, I wasn't really sure of my language level. And I really liked how this program had many different program tracks, and I could kind of fall into the track that was best suited to my language level once I got there. So I ended up doing the intermediate Hispanic studies track, which worked perfectly for me. And I was able to kind of also test out the other tracks and ultimately land on the Hispanic studies one just because it fit me best. Another thing that I really liked about the Casa Granada program is they offered both homestays or dorm living. I really wanted to do a homestay, and that was something that I had been interested in from like my very first thoughts of study abroad. And so this is one of the few programs that offered that. And so that was kind of like the main reason that I was like, okay, Casa Granada is the place for me. And I think that, and I can talk more about the homestays later, but that was definitely one of the highlights of my experience, and I recommend it to all students who are even remotely interested in it. I think also, and this is kind of related to the photo that you see on the screen. This is one of my favorite photos from abroad because it's me standing in a war trench left over from the Spanish Civil War that we visited during one of the CASA excursions that they planned for us throughout the semester. And this is one of my favorite days of abroad. We started in the morning by visiting this like beautiful family-owned farm and trying all of these like amazing fruits that they grow and sell there and the wine that they produce there. And then we had what like I consider to be one of the best meals of my life at this tiny like farm to table hole in the wall restaurant. And then we watched this somewhat like ridiculous, funny, theatrical reenactment of the Spanish Civil War, which is what led us to these war trenches. And it was pouring rain, which is why I'm wearing a poncho. And I feel like that's very representative of the study abroad experience. You have all these like amazing adventures that you're somewhat unprepared for and are unexpected, and you come out of them learning so much about yourself and growing so much and having so many fun memories and stories to tell. And I think that very true about my study abroad experience in general. I learned so much about myself and gained so much maturity. And I came back to Brown feeling a lot more sure of who I was and what I wanted to do. And I actually ended up changing my concentration after I came back from being abroad. I was initially just a math concentrator, and I came back and I switched my concentration during my junior spring to be computer science and applied math because so many people ask me in Spain, like, oh, why math? Like, I don't know, they just were very interested in why I was studying pure math. And I remember I was like, I can't really give you a great answer And it made me really think like, okay, maybe pure math isn't actually what I'm interested in. And yeah, I came back and I changed my concentration, and that's a decision that I feel very good about. Yeah, and I think just connecting back to how much I've matured and grew through my study abroad experience, I think it led me to so many amazing friendships that I continue to this day. I lived with some of the girls I studied abroad with during my junior spring. I'm still really close with some of the girls who were from other universities, and I'm going to go visit one in just a few weeks. And so, yeah, that's like a brief snapshot of how much I loved Granada and I think the study abroad experience in general. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any other specific questions. But
Emily, I have one quick question. Since this is a session really oriented around parents and families, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what your dynamic was with your family, and if you would have done anything differently or would have asked them to do something differently. That would be really helpful.
yeah, for sure. So I feel very lucky that my family was super supportive of me wanting to go abroad. And when I was talking to them about the different options that I was considering, I remember for them, the Casa Granada program really stood out because it is a Brown run program. And I think that the fact that the program is has like on-site CASA staff who are there working with you one-on-one to make sure that your experience goes as smoothly as possible. And these people have been like so well vetted by Brown University. And similarly with the homestays, the families that they choose are so well vetted by Brown University. I think that was a source of reassurance for them. And I can attest to the fact that the CASA programs are amazing. All of the on-site staff are so like wonderful people, and I miss them. And also just the ease of logistics of transferring credits back and like all of the details of what the program looks like in the application for Brown students, all of that is very seamless through the study abroad office. I was also lucky because, sorry, my dad was able to visit me during my study abroad semester, and he doesn't speak any Spanish, and my host family doesn't speak any English. And so we had this like wonderful dinner together where I was like translating between the two families, and they were learning about the US through my dad, and my dad was learning about Spain through them. And I think that was like a really wonderful way to kind of seal off my study abroad experience, tying it back to home. And I think that maybe some people worry that the students will go off to be abroad and will just like fall off the face of the earth. But I would say, in my experience, that's very much not true. I think everyone in my program had like a universal experience of checking in with their parents so often and calling them about all the great opportunities we had and adventures we were taking. Yeah, so I think the relationship that you have with your family can really be whatever you want it to be, and there's so much room for families to be involved.
Awesome. For the sake of time, we'll say thank you to Emily, but we're going to create some time for Q&A at the end, and Emily will still be available for that. So if you have questions oriented for her, we'll have that be available. If we can go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about summer programs, and then we'll breeze through the rest of the slides and just go straight to the Q&A, knowing that there are likely some other questions that you all have.
Perfect. And I will try to be quick with this as well. The summer programs obviously happen in the summer. It's again organized and supported out of my office. And I actually work with faculty at Brown to organize faculty-led programs. What we do is we actually go out to faculty and say, if you can dream up the best program for you to teach your students what you know so well and you love so well, what could you do? And this is what we come up with. And we have so many faculty who want to work with us that every year we are kind of trying to choose those that make the most sense just in terms of timing and bandwidth and all the different options. So we have found this to be an extremely popular choice, both for the faculty, for the students, and obviously for me. So most of our programs are, they happen during the summer session. For those of you who already know about the summer session, it's a 6-week long period in Brown where you can actually take classes. But our classes, because they involve travel, usually what happens is there is a pre-travel online asynchronous segment and then an in-person travel. So you meet the faculty in the country, and we have all these group tours and all that, and whatever the topic of the class might be, for somewhere between 2 to 4 weeks, and then they end off with post-travel, asynchronous, capstone presentations, whatever the faculty decides that's the best way for assessment or evaluation would be. We can you can obviously look up all the different summer session finances, but basically there are two main parts that we charge for that. One is for one Brown credit. So you pay one Brown credit worth of tuition and then program fees. And these program fees differ from place to place because obviously, going between China and Mexico and London are all very different costs and very different timings. So they'll have a different cost at all. There are no prerequisites. We want this to be open to every student. We want this to especially be open to students who've not really tried traveling before and maybe study abroad semester long is a little bit intimidating. This is a great way to do it, and you have Brown faculty sort of guiding you along the way, getting credit for it all throughout the entire experience. And for our next slide, I'm going to show you our this summer's offerings, which are incredibly exciting. The first one is going to Japan. We're going to be going to a few different cities in Japan, including Yokohama, Tokyo, Hokkaido, Kyoto, Osaka. We can keep going on and on, but really it's a program that is looking to go beyond the typical view of what Japan is, who the Japanese are, into the multicultural and ethnic communities in Japan. The second one is about haute couture in Paris. This is you can only imagine the number of questions I've received about this from students. It's going to be 2 weeks in Paris with a little side tour to Granville, which is where the House of Dior is. And the third one is Vietnam. We're going to be traveling through three countries, three cities in Vietnam, starting from Hanoi, going to Da Nang, and then ending off in Ho Chi Minh City, where the students will sort of talk about the story of Vietnamese food across regions and time. So it's food and history and culture all pulled together. I hope this is exciting too, and I'm happy to answer any questions on those too. Malik, back to you.
Absolutely. So why don't we just go straight into the Q&A? I know I've been trying to hastily answer questions in the chat, so hopefully that gives some answers, but I know that there are some questions that are better answered live through conversation. Mikkel, were there any questions that stuck out to you that would be helpful for us to answer?
Yes, absolutely. And that last slide on the Vietnam trip, I think I know what I'm having for lunch now.
Yeah.
It looked so good. So one of the questions, we've got a number of questions either in the registration or today about along the lines of my student is pre-med or my student is studying economics or engineering or whatever the topic is, and a real concern about making sure that the credits will apply to their program and they'll stay on time. Malik, can you give any advice to these parents who have those concerns?
Absolutely. So we have students of all concentrations who are able to study abroad. There are some concentrations like the ones that you had listed that have sort of sequenced requirements that make it complicated, but that complication just means that we encourage those students to plan a little earlier. And it's even more important that they're having close and ongoing conversations with their concentration advisor. So what happens with our team, students will come to our office and let us know what they're studying. And what we can do is we can help them look at the course offerings on a particular program. We hand that to a student, and then they take that to their concentration advisor, and they confirm whether or not that aligns with the curriculum that's offered here and the requirements they have remaining. And sometimes that actually means that students are redirected to say, hey, well, topically, this course is offered on this particular program. It doesn't actually meet the needs of our curriculum here, and a student may need to consider a different program. But as long as the student is relatively flexible in terms of location, many of their needs can be accommodated. And with early planning, they can sort of plan around a study abroad semester as well. So there's sort of two angles for addressing that need.
So you mentioned early planning, and we did get a lot of questions about how early should a student come to talk to you about study abroad.
Right away. And there's different sort of, we have a sort of tiered approach to what the level of information we share. So we do what's called Study Abroad 101 for students on an ongoing basis. And I believe even Emily facilitates some of these sessions. But essentially, that's a foundational session that covers a lot of the things that we talked about, just to familiarize students with the concept and things that they might need to do to prepare. We encourage students to do that as early as they arrive on campus. If they're curious about study abroad, come to Study Abroad 101. That'll give them a good idea of how to start searching through programs, asking the right questions, and then ultimately knowing which semester they should target in terms of applying.
Great, thank you. We got a really interesting question that I'll start with you, Malik, but I think folks would love to hear from Emily as well on this one. It was, what do students report that they wish they had known when they come back? What are some of the most common answers to that question?
I'll go quickly because something came to mind, and it's actually related to speed. It's that it goes by really fast. So students, even if they're gone for a year, they come back and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there was so much I wanted to do, and I feel like I missed out on some of it." The sort of encouragement in that regard is to really encourage students to be in the moment and to not overpack their schedule because that makes the time go really quickly. So while it's great for students to consider traveling to other places that are outside of their host city, this is a moment where we really encourage them to build some depth and knowledge of what their host city is, so that they can walk away from that experience feeling as though that they created a second home in many ways and not that they sort of just scratched the surface on a bunch of places.
Thank you.
Emily, I'm curious if you have any reflections on that.
Yeah, my initial thought was very similar. It goes by so fast, and you'll feel like you didn't appreciate every moment, but you did. And I also think something is that I wish I had realized before I went is like you're gonna fumble with the language and getting used to the local culture when you first get there. And that's okay. It happens to everybody. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. And as you progress through the semester, everything will become a lot more comfortable. So yeah, that's what I would say.
We have a couple, thank you, Emily. We have a couple of business related questions. So one was, is it too late to apply for a 2026 summer program? Adeline, is that one for
No,
you?
it is not. We have two deadlines. One is February 1st, which is my preferred deadline, and my final deadline is March 1st. I was just answering a question, which is why I was looking away, about caps and enrollments. And I get this question a lot. My goal here is to give as many students as I can the opportunity to go abroad, but obviously there are going to be limits in my buses, and I can't, so we're going to try our best. My best advice to you and to your students is to apply as early as you can. If you can make it in the February 1st deadline, please do. I know that is in 2 days, but I've been talking to students about this since December, and had a ton of info sessions. But apply. It's a very simple application. I'm asking you 3 questions, and I'm asking you, why do you want to do this? How will this help you? And I hope the students can respond appropriately. And we are going to start doing our first admission cycle after the February 1st deadline. So by mid-February, we'll have a first batch in. So if you want to get in, apply early.
All right. Well, there's still a little bit of time. One of the questions we had come in was about the additional cost for studying abroad. I know Malik covered that the tuition is the same, but housing and other fees may be different. Are there external supplemental aid that students can apply for? What have students done in the past?
It's a really great question. To know whether or not it's more expensive, it's going to be sort of program dependent and program specific. But we do have a website that covers external scholarships, and I can share that link in just a moment. But it's helpful for students to know that that's there as an additional resource. But for many of our students, they actually won't need external scholarships because our financial aid package is so robust and comprehensive. But first, it's certainly having the conversation with us so we can build out the budget. And then, if needed, sort of looking through those external sources. And again, I'll drop the link to our external scholarships page in just a second.
Excellent. Another question we had in the registration that came up frequently was about housing. How does housing work when a student goes abroad? Are they guaranteed a room when they come back? Can you talk a little bit about that? Adeline, do you want to start with that? Or Malik? That's a Malik question. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
happy to answer that one. So the process varies slightly depending on which semester a student is abroad. But in broad strokes, essentially what will happen is that any student who's away from campus, whether it's through a personal leave or study abroad, will receive a message from housing directly that lets them know what the sort of mid-year process is. So long as students fill out that form similar to how they fill out their housing preferences usually, typically, students are placed accordingly. Again, the prospect is very different for fall versus spring. Students who are studying abroad in the fall and returning in the spring, that's when they do the mid-year process. Students who are studying abroad in the spring essentially are applying and applying for a full year of housing, and then they'll be excused for the respective semester they'll be away. But they receive specific instructions from housing depending on which cohort they're a part of.
That's great. Thank you for answering that. We're really close to the end here, so I think I'd like to end with just having the three of you give your top tips for parents and families who their student is considering studying abroad or already has plans to study abroad. And while you guys are answering, I'm going to put a link to the survey in the chat. So let's start with Emily.
I would say that every student I know has loved their study abroad experience. I think it's very universally well loved, regardless of where you go or what your major is or anything like that. And I think it's overall a super enriching experience that has helped me continuously since I got back, and I think has definitely transformed the way that I think about the world and myself and my career and things like that. So I highly recommend.
Thanks, Emily. Adeline?
I would say, the thing about study abroad, and that's going to be different from a travel abroad, and those of you who travel with your families, with your children, is um, it's it's going to feel uncomfortable for the students when they first get there. And that is normal. And that is good because they should feel a little bit out of place. And I hear from many parents at the beginning of the semester every year about something about my student was not expecting this. Yes, of course they weren't. They've never lived like a student in Paris, in Granada, in Melbourne. They have, because of you, they probably have never thought about, I don't even know where to buy a trash can in Paris. So, that's why we have teams there. That's why my teams, I have directors and staff there who are there to guide them. And we're going to feel their discomfort and we're going to take it in and we're going to support them the way you would like us to. So just go with the flow, go with the discomfort. It is a growth moment for them.
That's a great tip, Adeline. Thank you. And Malik, why don't you close us out?
Absolutely. I would say in some ways, I would just say to trust the process, but also hold your students accountable to sharing information with you. So we share lots of information in a timely manner, and I always describe the sort of infrastructure of advising that we share with students over a period of 6 months. So of course, if you see one material, it'll be out of context. So the first thing I always recommend is to ask your student, because it's really important that they are well versed in the information, and ask them to share it back with you. Again, we're available to answer questions, but we really want to encourage you to build that sort of aspect of communication with your student before they go, so that that also translates and can continue while they're abroad. Because ultimately, you're going to want to hear from your students while they're abroad, and it's really important to build good communication patterns.
That's great advice. Thank you, Malik and Adeline and Emily. I really appreciate your time today. And to all our parents, we hope we see you on Monday for our career exploration webinar. But in the meantime, have a wonderful weekend and a great day wherever you are in the world. Take care, everyone.